thank you so much for meeting with me, Kerry. It's been really a great honor to work with you and your company, Bespoke Pro Designs. We were able to work with you guys on your new website, which was a pleasure. And I got to get a little more intimate about your work when we were uploading the imagery. And I was like, whoa, this is cool stuff. And so when we started the podcast, I was like, I've got to get Kerry on here. But I just wanted to, first off, give the listeners a little bit of context to how we know each other. But I wanted to kind of dive right in. Like, I don't know if I know anybody doing makeup at such a high level. So anyways, I want to just thank you for coming on, taking your time to be with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. And I kind of wanted to just dive in. What made you interested in the makeup field? What was the tug that got you into the industry?
There's a few tugs that got me into the industry. I think as a little kid, I knew the arts were definitely a part of me. I didn't know on what level yet. So as I journeyed through school and all that stuff, I just kind of started realizing the things that would speak to me, and, art and painting and all those different mediums spoke to me. And I wanted to get into medicine, go into medical school, but having my independence, I wanted to do something that, paid bills, as well as kind of explore that creative side of me before I really journeyed down that other path. And in doing so, I got my license to cut hair when I was still in high school. And then in between, summer and college and all of that, I met all these student filmmakers, and I got to do their projects, and I was reading their scripts, and there was like blood and guts and westerns and fights and cowboys and monsters and things. And I was like, wait a minute, I can do what? So I think that just kind of opened my eyes up to a realm I didn't really know necessarily could exist for me. So I decided I was going to explore that before I went further down the other path. And I've just been at it ever since. And the two of them kind of go hand in hand, because to create a good injury, you kind of got to know all that other stuff too.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does, your time and experience in the medical field inspire you in particular ways? Does it give you an edge on your work, compared to if you hadn't had that experience?
Oh, I feel it does. And even earlier on, I noticed it even on like lower production sides too. I kind of started realizing what an asset it was when I would be watching the choreography and rehearsals with the stuntmen and actors going through a scene on how somebody gets injured, or like how they fall down a staircase and what they hit alongside, along the way down. And there was times where I was like, well, the director wants the injury to be on the right side of his head, but, he bashed the left side of his face when he fell down the stairs. And, just how things made sense and how I put them together and things like that. And I felt like it was a really big asset even earlier on. And I found myself like really diving into whatever the stunts were.
That makes a lot of sense. Like artists who do character design or, figure drawing, you have to have anatomy built in, or else it's going to look awkward. Obviously, you can go, journey through the uncanny valley, on the different peaks and whatnot. But, ultimately, you need to know where you're at on that valley in order to produce a product that makes sense for the vision of the director or anything like that. You had mentioned that, the director wanted one thing, like, we want his gash to be on the top of the left side of the head. And have you received pushback when you told the director, actually, it's supposed to be on the left side, and it's really hit his jaw? How does that play out where are you actually speaking to the director directly, and do they accept that, like, oh, that makes sense, or are they like, nope, just make the gash really big on the head?
Well, therein lies the politics, Josh. There it is. I have had good and bad experiences with that. And fortunately, they were at the independent filmmaking stage. And and that's also, I think, a good reason why we should always start down there and work our way up. Um, I've found my way around navigating sensitivities and personalities and hierarchies, let's just say.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of directors that, especially at a higher level, they hire you for your experience. So they want to hear it. If they're in the moment creatively, and they know that the way the light is and this angle and, this looks stylistically cooler to show it this way, they could be in that zone. But then if I say, well, do we want to stay with that injury on that side, or do we want to, make some changes to this at all to get that result? Then they really appreciate you, because they don't want it to look not realistic either. They don't want to take people out of the story and say, well, that didn't make sense. So a lot of times they do appreciate it. It's how you voice it, because like I said, they're in their creative zone, and it's our job to pay attention to those things and ebb and flow with their creativity. But they essentially really are selecting us for our experience in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine, the deeper you get into the industry, the more experience that you have, the more leverage that you have as an expert to say, look, I've been doing this for 20 years at a high level. I know what I'm talking about. But you mentioned something where you've got to start somewhere, and you have less leverage when you're starting because you're just kind of like producing it, and you have less experience to rely on and to contribute. I was just kind of curious talking about that where did you start within, I guess, Hollywood? I'm doing air quotes. I'm not sure, where Hollywood starts and ends within, working your way up from independent films. Like, what's actually considered Hollywood? Maybe you could touch on that. But like, can you talk to me about your journey of progressing into these bigger pictures?
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like my journey is every day.
Sure.
I feel like I'm still on some sort of expedition every day. I feel like Hollywood it's a really broad blanket statement of our industry, really, because whilst it's considered Hollywood in Los Angeles, California, feature films are shot all over the world. So I truly feel like once you have actors and a script, a director and cameras and the whole crew base, essentially you've created Hollywood in that regard. But my journey with all of that was kind of across the board. I've experienced so many different aspects of this industry, like commercials, print and editorial, fashion and runway, celebrity red carpet, TV, features. So I actually dabbled in so many of these different arenas. And during that, I was trying to kind of figure out what my own niche was. And while I was doing a photo shoot, I missed being on a film set and vice versa. And I was like, well, as much as I love doing this high fashion thing, I also love making it look really gory too. So how can I combine that? And I started learning a lot about myself and what inspired me. And I love different eras, like 40s, 50s, 30s, 20s. I love all of that. I love making somebody into something that is so unique and not even them. And I think that's the magic of acting. It's all, make believe and somebody getting to, become something else for the day. And loving all of that, I'm like, how can I combine all that together? Like it didn't exist really, I didn't think, at least not anywhere I knew I could access until FX Network came my way. And I started doing campaigns with them for Nip Tuck. And before that, I was doing one of their interstitial type shows, which was scripted with two show hosts. And I did that for 6 years on FX Network when they were kind of becoming a network that had actual TV shows and things like that, not just cartoon or Adult Swim. And it was original content, basically. And they had The Shield and Nip Tuck. And so the network was just getting on the map, essentially. And I was fortunate enough to start creating campaigns with them for early on shows of Nip Tuck. And we put all those elements in. The very, very brilliant marketing team in FX. I mean, I just can't speak highly enough of them. Stephanie Gibbons is their brilliant brain behind it all. And I would work closely with her, who's like the vice president of network, the network basically. And, she would show me some images and tell me some ideas, because this was so long ago now. And we would just create these elaborate characters that were so unique to whatever the season was. Like, she always buried the storyline in with imagery into the campaign. So they were drawing viewers in essentially with just visuals. And so we combined all of it: character, different eras, beauty, gore. We put it all together. And I'm like, is this really happening to me? So there started that journey. And like, I've just been in it ever since. And I'm so grateful and honored that now we're doing American Horror Story campaigns together and still creating together. It's just been such a gift.
My goodness. Yeah. I mean, what great way to like culminate all of your desires and your skill sets into a particular, I guess, network of production. I mean, how cool is that? But you earned it. You put in time and effort, and you had to also discover what you liked and didn't like, what you liked more than other things through that journey of becoming like a very competent artist in that industry. So, you earned it. And I think that's not to water it down, but I think when people stick with a particular trade or creative outlet or something like that, if they're serious about it, they're bound to put themselves in particular positions where the opportunity eventually becomes available, and you're ready to seize that opportunity because of your experience, because of your perseverance, because of your expertise and all that hard work and dedication. And so it seems like, at a particular time, they aligned for you, but not without all that hard work getting up to there, figuring out that you didn't want to go into the medical field, but utilizing the medical field to your advantage throughout all of that. That's fascinating. Before we go any further, so you've mentioned Nip Tuck, you've mentioned American Horror Story. What are some of the other, bigger features or shows that you've worked on that might perk people's ears up and be like, oh my gosh, wow, I could, and look for you in the credits when they rewatch it?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Recent years, something a little close to my heart was my experience working on Black Adam. And there was a couple other movies as well in the superhero realm, Eternals and Well, Haunted Mansion recently, actually, most recently,
Cool.
Haunted Mansion, but Eternals and Black Adam were pretty fun. So they were
So
all fun.
sure. I mean, what's cool is you've placed yourself in a realm where if you're doing what you love, you're probably pretty happy, unless it's just an awful script or something like that. But it doesn't seem like those would make it to the level that you're at, so they get weeded out. What do you think? What would be your favorite production you've ever worked on? That might be a really difficult question. It's like, what's your favorite song?
Or what's my favorite colors? Like a lot of them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that is actually really difficult. Because sometimes my experience lies within the camaraderie in my makeup room and like how we collaborate together as a team. Sometimes it's the experience going through the journey with my actor. Even if I don't really turn them into anything so far above what they normally look like. And sometimes it's really the art of it. And like I've created something that is so unique. So there's so many different types of really fabulous experiences I've had. One interesting, I guess you could say interesting as well as favorite experience was when we did the American Horror Stories Doll Stories campaign. We essentially made head to toe human dolls, and we put the joints on them and the wigs, and we made them look like real life kind of creepy dolls. So it had all the elements of all the things I love. We made them look beautiful but creepy and weird and not human, and we did all the things. But that collaboration was a collaboration with my brilliant clients who come up with these concepts and giving each one of these dolls a personality. But then it goes into working with the set designers, and then you get inspired by where this doll is going to be put in a set. And then the costume designers, and what are they going to dress them in? And then my own team, how we're going to execute them. It's very stressful because the time constraints and trying to scratch our heads and figure out how we're going to make these things to begin with. But just the collaboration of all these artists coming together and working so symbiotically together is such a happy place for me. And I think because that one is so recent and epic in volume, that it's standing out to me because I really enjoyed that. Like watching members of my team doing 15, 16-hour days, but walking around the room saying, how can I help you? It's a room full of artists. It's a building full of artists just working together so beautifully, and very proud of that.
As you should be. It's really fascinating. We've had musicians on the show. I'm a musician. I've been in bands. I've been in different productions where, 5, 10 people are making something, and it's a lot of logistics and coordination and work and expertise and personalities and tastes coming together to build this one product that has to feel cohesive once it's done. You then extrapolate that to hundreds of people working on a TV show or a film. If you sit around for the credits of some of those productions, they go on a long time, and it makes sense because it's hard work and there's a lot of moving pieces. But it's absolutely fascinating when you actually step back and think about it. And I'm sure that you being in it all the time, you have a greater appreciation of what it really takes to make a movie, to make a great production. But it's pretty fascinating, all of those minds, all of that taste and experience, and just coming together to create something that greater than all of themselves. There's something really special to that. And it's cool that you are, drawn, that's some of your favorite parts. Obviously, the end product is really neat to be proud of, but it makes so much sense that you love the experience, the journey, not necessarily. The destination is wonderful and that's what you're there for, but you're also enjoying all of that collaboration. Because for me, I love that. Like as a musician, getting through the songwriting process and figuring out and sorting through what is this song going to be and how would we perform it live versus recording in the studio. There's something so magical about that.
Yeah, I mean that's a really great analogy. It's very similar, and it's like a symphony. Like you can't have this whole beautiful sound without all the elements. And I think people look at my work, or they'll look at an image, let's say like a campaign image, and they'll think, "Wow, that was really cool. That like your work is great. I love what you did." But I didn't do that by myself.
Uh-huh.
No one of us did it by ourselves. Costume didn't do it themselves, art department, it's like it's all the elements combined. And just like a song and a band and all that, like it all comes together. And I think what people aren't really always understanding when they look at still images is, especially when it's extreme character, not often is somebody doing that by themselves. There's obviously wig makers and, the hairstylists, then there's makeup artists. And a lot of times when we're applying prosthetics and things like that, we're working in tandem with each other. Like somebody's putting on the wig and somebody's, putting a prosthetic on an arm and the other one's painting the prosthetic on the other arm. We're all working together, and all these elements take so much time to put together that you really can't do just one here and one there. We'd never get it done.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. And so, when I look at the final end product, we're like so proud, but it's like we are proud, and I'm not above asking somebody's opinion because we are all creative. And maybe I'm seeing something that somebody else would see differently and make a suggestion, and that's just like the game changer that drove this whole thing home. So totally. I think, yeah, when you get a group of artists together, you want to just banter back and forth, and especially if you got the right group of people together, utilize them.
I was just about to say that's the power in having a group of professionals with all sorts of different experiences. If you utilize that and take advantage of all of that talent in the same room or rooms, you're going to have a way better end product that's much more meaningful and powerful than it ever would be if it was one or two people locked into a silo,
Oh, yeah. And you don't want everybody with the same skill set. I don't want that. I mean,
right.
I want them to have a broad skill set, but I want somebody to be stronger in one area than somebody else. And it's almost like you're matchmaking, really. It's like these two artists would be a really great team. So I'm going to put them on this thing because this person paints fast and this person applies fast, or, this person's really, really strong at extreme beauty and this one's really good at extreme gore. Let's put them together. How you can just really match artists up. I think, that's important too.
100%. That contrast brings out so much vibrance. We had a band on called Discord Theory for episode 3, and their band name is even attributing to what they are, because they're all very talented musicians that come from various backgrounds, jazz, and then, another one's from like alternative punk rock, and they all fuse together to make this very, very cool and unique sound because of their different trajectories that brought them together. So, I mean, it makes so much sense visually that would happen. I wanted to know, how many people on average do you work with, day to day, or I guess maybe film or TV show, what's that crew that you're in direct contact with? What's the size of that?
Well, my makeup department, ironically, on film and TV, you would think it would be pretty large, but our core daily team is quite small. Probably about 4 makeup, 4 hair, and then we have what's called day players. Heavier days with crowd scenes or something. Then we'll just grow it from there. And they'll just work with us the days we need them and that sort of thing. But typically the average size is like, 4, 5, sometimes even 3 3, 4, 5 makeup artists. But when I do really big campaigns, I'll have up to 60 people just in makeup.
Wow.
Yeah. Hair and makeup. Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
it is. And crews range in the hundreds, like, between 100, 200 plus on a movie or something like that.
Sure. What do you notice about, just from like thinking about like my business, I'm not that big of an operation compared to that. How do you organize? What are some of the best, tools or methods of keeping all of those moving pieces on the same page and organized?
Well, first of all, it's back to experience. So it's back to experience, but also it's the structure of the job we do, so it starts at the top and there's a schedule every day. I have to meet the requirements of the schedule. X amount of people need to be ready by this particular time. So I take that and I create a plan around that. I know my big broad picture and the end goals and what it's going to take from soup to nuts. And basically I'll just put in my own structure within the big structure, and I'll hire according to the volume. And then I give everybody their tasks throughout the day. And, here's what's on our plate today. This has to be done by that time because they have to be on camera shooting by this time. So I'll bring 14 of us in at this hour to accomplish that. Then I'll bring another, 10 people in, and then we'll rest them, and then we'll get this going, or, so you just kind of have to just balance it out all day long based on how full your plate is, really.
Yeah. And that plan being the ultimate arbiter of this person needs to be done by 3 because we're shooting them at 3:30 or 4, whatever that gap is. And that's that, because that determines that those people who are filming and directing and running the sound, they're all there at 4 p.m. to expect that actor or actress in that place at that moment. I mean, it's fascinating, the level of planning. But if you all stick to that, then it works.
Yeah. And you have to stick to it, and then it works. Yeah. And the last thing anybody wants is having a large group of studio executives sitting around waiting for hair and makeup to get done.
And they can figure out what the delay is. Oh, it's hair and makeup because this person isn't ready. So you're in the spotlight, then not in such a great light.
Yeah, we're first up at bat all the time. It starts with us. Yeah, we start the day and we end the day. So whatever we need to put on actors to get them ready for the day, we come in and do that. And then at the end of the day, we can't send them home without taking it off of them either. So, especially if it's character and a prosthetic or all those things, we have to stay and clean them up.
Yeah, I think that's something that I didn't really think about, that people don't really think about, is, okay, you put the makeup on and then you're done, but you have to wait around and actually take it off. Wow.
Well,
what's harder, putting it on or taking it off?
Oh, definitely putting it on.
Okay.
It takes a lot longer.
When I rock climbed, I used to go all the time, and down climbing was actually sometimes more difficult than up climbing. And I was just curious about that. It makes sense for makeup. That's a lot, because sometimes you can just wash it off or take the thing off. You don't have to be so careful.
Oh, we have to be very careful when we.
Or you do. Okay.
Adhesives on people. But it's interesting because the challenges at the end of the day are just different. Actors want to go home. They're tired. We're all tired. Everybody's, tired. We know we have to probably come back and do it again tomorrow. But when we are putting these makeups on actors day in and day out, they end up with sensitivities. So we have to be very, very gentle. So sometimes at the end of the day, it may not be necessarily more difficult than applying it, but the challenges are just different. Like we have to be very cautious and slow and keep them calm, because if they're feeling any kind of discomfort, then they get worried, but yet their patience is running out because all they want to do is go home and go to bed. And, and so do we, but we can't say that. So, the challenges are just different. I mean, obviously we're very meticulous putting it on and making sure it looks flawless all day, because we maintain it all day. We touch it up all day. They eat lunch. We have to touch it back up and all these other things. But the challenges at the other day they're just different, but they're there as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. And you're painting such a vibrant picture of what that experience is like. I want to dive in a little more, because you're talking about working with actors, and some of them I would imagine are pretty high caliber and maybe particular, or maybe you'd be, normal people would be nervous around actors or particular actresses. I just kind of want to get an inside scoop on what is it like being, because you're right there in their face too. It's not like you're from a distance holding a boom mic or something like that. You're touching them physically. And I would imagine, unless you're doing something with their lips, maybe they're talking back and forth. What's that experience like? Like what's cool about it? What's not cool about it? I know it might be a loaded question.
I mean, it's a great loaded question. It's got a lot of layers there. It's good. Well, we are very much in their personal spaces. Like you said, we're just right there in the front of their faces. So we see them at their rawest and their most vulnerable, and it can go either way. And, we being who they see first thing in the morning when they walk in our makeup trailer, and they see us, ready to receive them for the day. And who knows what happened to them before they got to work, or how their night was. Did they have a terrible sleep? Did they have an argument with a family member? You never know what's going on in their world. And it's our job to nurture them and embrace them. And more often than not, they come in and just ready to get the day started and sit down, and it's business, and we just chat and just bond, really. Like we've really, closely connected at this point, because we are right in their personal spaces. But sometimes they also want to take it out on us too. And we have to think through, what we're doing and calm them down and be their therapist and all that good stuff. But meanwhile, somebody's walking up and down the trailer steps and it's shaking, and you're trying to put some little detail on them or something like that. And so it just takes a lot of just mental preparation for us to get to work for the day and just not let any of this get to us. But there's been beautiful conversations and all kinds of things that I will always cherish working with, people sitting in my chair and all that. But, like we were saying, at the end of the day, the challenges are different. In the morning, the challenges are different too. So, just navigating around that. But, getting to see some of these actors that we know and love on the big screen, who they really actually are as a human being, is pretty special. And I think we're very lucky that we get to do that, because we are really the only department that sits and talks to them that way. Like we have our own space in a little bubble where it's one-on-one and we're having a conversation, and we get to know them, and we get to go through that scripted journey with them for sure. So it's pretty special, I'll say.
The Growth Coach is the world's leader in business coaching, sales coaching, and entrepreneurial education. With the combination of the strategic business mindset and life leadership paradigm, I am driven to help you move forward, as well as help you and your partner gain the edge you need to succeed in your business journey together. Call or text me today for a free consultation at 727-390-4414, or email me at enutting@thegrowthcoach.com. the growth coach of St. Petersburg. Better business, better results, better life.
It's so cool, like having conversations like this. This is like why I love doing this, because we get to dive into, something that looks on the surface level like, yeah, and I'm not undermining it or underplaying it at all. And sometimes it's a good thing where you go, yeah, it's makeup. It looks great, but all of the dynamic that comes to getting it on, taking it off, everything in between, how you got there with your knowledge and the understanding of anatomy and things like that. It truly is fascinating. I think with a lot of crafts, like if you see a band perform live, they make it look easy. You know what I mean? You're like, if they're really, really good, you're like, they look like they're barely trying. It's just like part of them. But the amount of hours and the difficulty and all of the different aspects of them getting to that stage is incredible. But when they're performing, when they're on it, when you see that final product, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This is great. And, and so I say that because like, it's kind of cool to be able to dissect it. It's also cool that people can just watch it for what it is. That when we look at even, more basic television shows, like for instance, Big Bang Theory, there's no gashes and stuff like that. They do have some different scenes where they dress up in like Star Trek uniforms or whatever it is. But, most of the time you don't even think about the makeup that they're wearing, but they all are. And they all had to have their hair done, even if they look like they're messy and out of bed. That was intentional. And so it's just it's just interesting that everything in that realm is so planned and that there's so much behind every artist and every piece of the set and the people on it. You could just go down these rabbit holes and it's fascinating. You had talked about some of the difficulties. You had just hinted at it. And I kind of wanted to know, what would you say is one of your, most major setbacks or the most, difficult spot you've been in your industry where you go, man, I don't know about this, or I don't know how I'm going to get past this. And just curious what that was and how you overcame it.
Oh, wow. That's a wonderful question. It's a little multifaceted for me because I am a makeup artist and a department head who happens to have career accolades and awards, which is amazing. But I also have a company where I educate aspiring artists, and I'm very passionate for that. And a lot of my classes becoming full are dependent on my stature as an artist. So I want to grow my stature as an artist to fuel my classes so I can teach, inspire, and mentor, not because I want to win a popularity contest in my industry. So setting off on that journey to do that, I noticed that I had to put myself out there a little bit more. And, that's vulnerable and scary. And then I started noticing that students in markets that I've taught, whenever they were gaining ground on becoming, a professional and established, there was a whole lot of people in that market that wanted to try to knock down my credibility in order to knock down theirs. And it's really just competition is all it is. And I remember calling my agent up one day because her and I were going to do an event together. And I said, I don't know if I can really do this anymore. I don't know. I mean, it seems like, there's a whole lot of people talking about me in that market. And I'm just so uncomfortable about that. And she basically said, congratulations.
I was just about to say, it's kind of an indicator of where you're at within the industry if you're getting that attention.
And that's what happened. And of course, you don't realize it at the time. And, it's scary and sad. And you're just like, I don't understand. I'm just, here to help everybody and mentor and support and make sure everybody gets jobs and share my knowledge and all these other things. But, I realized at that moment that if it's happening in the educational sphere, it's going to, happen in my career amongst my peers. And it really, fortunately, it hasn't really impacted me super negatively, other than I'm under the microscope. People watch what I do for sure. They're always
kind of cool, because that's a good indicator of that your work is at a particular level where people put you under that microscope.
Yeah, my own colleagues are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I now have grown to just realize that that's my norm and that's where I'm at, and to be honored by it. To be honest, like I just have to look at it like that, and I do, and I think I've been very fortunate that I really don't have anybody coming for me in that way, but I'm always certainly prepared for it. That's for sure.
Yeah. I would, think I'm kind of thinking about actors or sports figures, lots, even like scientists and any people competing, because like you're getting a makeup gig that somebody else didn't when you got American Horror Story or this or that, Black Adam. When you get to that upper level, there's inherent competition, and you're never going to not like ruffle a feather or two, because of, even if you're the most wonderful person 100% of the time, people are going to feel like you're coming after them because you took that job that they didn't. But what can you do about that? But it's kind of interesting there. But I think it's very healthy that you just take it as a compliment and that you use that as fuel.
Yeah, well, that's all you can do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just a bunch of sensitive artists wishing it were them, or why didn't I get that job? Or, it's just like, I can't really take it personally, because I'm not really doing anything personal to anybody other than just succeeding. And like, I joke around that because now I've worked with FX somewhere around the 20-year kind of mark. And for us as freelancers, that's really, there's something to be said for that. Not a lot of people can say they've, held a client at that level for that long. But I joke saying, I'm sure there's a long line of people that want to push me down the stairs or in front of a bus, just to be able to have, a shot at that. But
well, watch your back.
Yeah.
Because we don't want that to happen.
No,
Jeez.
But I always laugh, and I even tell my students, I'm like, they're like, wow, that was amazing, or that was amazing. And I always feel like, well, no good deed goes unpunished, so like you pull off one thing, then they know that can be done. So the next one is just going to be a little bit more harder than the last.
Right.
They always are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned though about, and I think this ties into it, that you're not in it for popularity contests, but yet people are still putting you under the microscope. So do you think that it helps that you've won so many awards? What is it? You had mentioned a bunch, 8?
Yeah, eight now. Well, I think what comes along with the success is I give out a lot of jobs to do what I do. So each big job, I'm hiring a lot of people. And when you're one of those players in that field that give out the jobs, you're looked at differently. And, there's the people that want to be on your jobs and they seek out to work for you and with you. And, and then there's the other people that are like, well, I want to work on their job, or I want to work on their job. So it's like whatever sets you aside. And a lot of what sets me aside is my jobs are highly creative. Mm-hmm. And we get to create together. And like I was explaining earlier, my way of doing it is very, very collaborative. And there's a lot of people in my position that they hire a team and they delegate, do this, do it this way, use this, use it that way. And they don't let them really explore their own take on it, really. And in my makeup rooms, I want it to feel we're all in it together, and it's very a cohesive unit. It's very much teamwork. And so I know there are a lot of people that really are clamoring to be on those jobs with me. So now other artists are even hitting up the artists that work for me. So it's interesting with the popularity contest in that way, because there's always that little voice, are you being nice to me because you want a job? you know, it's like,
yeah,
it sometimes feels that way, and it's probably not fair to the person I'm speaking to. But there's times where I'm like, you know what? You weren't speaking to me 2 years ago for any other reason when we were at these events, but now you are. When I'd bump into you, you didn't know me, but now you do. Just interesting things like that.
Yeah, that's a reality of it. Totally. Yeah. So you work with an agent, you're hiring teams. I'm just kind of curious, because for me, pricing is like my least favorite part of the job. Does your agent help you with pricing yourself and then working within the production's budget? Or does the production tell your agent, who tells you, here is the budget, and then you know how many you can hire on your team? How's that process like? I'm just kind of curious on a little bit of the finance side of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, a large reason I have an agent is so I don't have those money talks.
Yeah.
Personally, for sure. Absolutely.
I wish I had an agent so bad.
Yes, it will cost you 20% to have one. So I think you're doing all right.
I feel like it would be worth it.
Yeah, it is for me. I think I'm really lucky in the regard that a lot of times budgets come my way as is, and they trust me to attack it in the way I need to. Like, Kerry, here's what the ask is. Staff it the way you need to. For the most part, they'll trust me to get the job done in the way I need to, and they'll trust that I'm not, blowing their money in ways I don't need to either. So I'm very, very fortunate in that regard. But there's a lot of times somebody will go to my agent and say, this is all we have, and she needs to make it work. And then if my agent presents that to me, I'm like, I get that, then I might not be the right person for this job, because to do it right, I would need a little bit more than they're offering. So instead of me having that conversation, she can have it for me.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, it is nice. And, at the end of the day, everybody has a budget. It's just how we do that dance together to put the pieces together, really. And when you come in under a budget, promise high, come in low, that kind of thing, you really look good. It's
sure
such a huge bonus to do that for yourself.
What is the biggest, like the most interesting thing where you're like, I'd love to work on this, but I have to turn it down?
Oh, wow. Well, I was asked to turn Billy Zane into Marlon Brando, and he's Marlon Brando. You put the pieces on him and the wig and the makeup, and he's Marlon Brando, and he does it phenomenally. And I did a sizzle reel, and we did turn him into Marlon Brando, and it was probably one of the most special things I had looked at after I'd done and said, wow, I can't believe we just did that. And watching him act out Marlon Brando was just such a treat, and really, really amazing. But they just didn't have the funds, really. And I really fought through that, thinking, well, on one hand, you could just look at it like it's a passion project and go for the gold. And, at this stage of the game, I very well could do that. And that was my plan. I was going to go to Tahiti and shoot all this footage and this beautiful script and go along that path. And they literally had no money for it. And I was going to go, and something else came my way that I had to be an adult and and not do it, because I also knew what they were asking me to do without the money wasn't going to be as special as what it could look like if they had it.
Sure.
Like, just wait a little longer, get some more funding, and it could just be epic. And they just wanted to get it done. And that, for me, I kind of, So I was on the fence of, do I walk away or treat it as a passion project and see what I can donate to the project to make it, look really, really good. But then when some other client came my way with, a project that was on the plate, I kind of just had to take it.
Yeah. Like you said, you sometimes just have to like wake up and be like, well, that's just even as good of an opportunity. Because there's been some things where a business comes to me. I'm like, that is a cool business. What's your budget? And it's just like, that's not they say the number. I'm like, that isn't even like, how do you think I eat?
Yeah.
So it's like, just why don't you just wait a little and we can do it right next year, just save up a good chunk each month. And then let's hammer this out. We could strategize all the way up until there. But at least you got to do the sizzle reel. So at least you got to like kind of scratch the surface on that, at least experience it for that particular.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing. I don't think Billy Zane will ever talk to me again as a result of me not finishing the project. But, I had to pick my battles on that one. And it actually really pulled on my heartstrings because I am at a place in my career where I could go do a passion project and make $0. Like I could go do that for a month and it'll be just fine. But when it came down to, they just didn't have funding for me to do what I needed to do to build all the other characters and take a team over there and just, really do it right. And then I would have lost a client in the meantime that said, we've got this project on the table. So it hurt my heart to separate myself from it, but I do feel it was the right thing to do. Definitely.
Yeah. Ultimately, you have to do the right thing for you at the end of the day. Also, I want to throw in there that you did the right thing for the industry. If you start to take jobs where you're not valued, then that waters down everybody else and the expectations are changed. Even if it's one project, but then 100 people do that, then the tone out there is that, hey, we could all get this work for cheaper when you actually can't. And so you do have to kind of stick to your guns. I've had to do that like all my life. I'm finally nearing an area where, okay, we're getting near the value that we deserve. But man, is an uphill battle in the creative and the arts. And it's so interesting because so many other parts of the world are just taken for granted as far as like you go to get a medical procedure or whatever. And I know that this is all very important, for that, or an iPhone. It's like, that's the price and no one bats an eye. But then if you're talking about, well, I need to apply this makeup and it's X amount of dollars, or I need to do this website for you. You're asking for 55 different pages. It's going to be this. And all of a sudden it's like, there's negotiation. And it's just kind of interesting that the arts gets this. It always seems like a struggle in arts, whether it be music or the new visuals. And I know that higher level productions and it is valued and there are good budgets, but getting there is a really tough road.
It's a very tough road. I mean, you just have touched on so many things. It's the value that we have and teaching people what value we hold. And I'm sure you get calls all the time of, just do this website for me and, I'll pay you later or whatever. Or can't you give me a deal? And whenever we do that, we are devaluing ourselves and what we bring to the table. And, I always say to my students and aspiring artists, you have to teach people how to treat you. And if we keep giving it away, then we're not showing them we hold value. And sometimes when you say yes to a project, then, for a lot less money, they're saying, see, it can be done. Yeah. So, we don't want to set that as a standard or an expectation at all. We certainly don't.
Definitely. When I had students, I used to say, if someone comes to you and say, look, just do this for free. It's going to be great exposure. You tell them, I can't eat exposure. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. Maybe once or to get it off the bat. But if you keep going down that road, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing all of us a disservice. So I really hammered that home with my students when I taught as well. So glad to hear that you have that torch burning as well, because that's really important. It's the only way that the value is perceived, because like in music, things are changing too, even music and film. Now you pop on Netflix, you pop on Spotify, and you just scroll to whatever you want through tons of different films, and you just press play, and it's free. Essentially, you don't think about your Spotify or your Netflix subscription. It's basically free, and you could skip it. You can indulge in it or not, and it's fast. And I just had a radio host on for episode 6, and he kind of broke this down, that the ease of access kind of waters down the love that it took previously in analog, scenarios. Say, for instance, a record. You took work and effort to put on that album, to go to the store, to buy it, to have the device to play it, to then actually physically put the handle on, to press play, and you'd have to get up and change the song or press pause if you're not, and you're kind of stuck with that record. And there's something magical about, you're being immersed into that. There's, I think, a different perceived value now where everything is so accessible. People look at, same with podcasts, like this podcast, people are going to be listening to it, be like, yeah, you guys just met, and then you press record, and then now it's up. It's like, oh boy, there's so much more that goes into it. And in a way, just like when you watch a movie, if a lot of people start walking out at those credits, there's magic, because it's like, wow, there it was. I experienced it. Cool. I'm going to go home and go to bed. But like all of the work that goes into what you just saw in that hour and a half is incredible.
Oh yeah. The 6 months it took to get that 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, and then all that went in on the back end on all the post work and all that. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into everything, podcasts and, and also too, like, people need to factor in it's time.
Uh-huh. 100%.
Not a lot of people have just piles of time laying around. So when you dedicate yourself to something, there's something to be said for that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of time, we've reached a time in the episode. It's called the rapid fire. Sound effects galore. But yeah, we're just going to do a rapid fire. Points are very important in this. You could lose, you could win. We're going to see if you come out on top. Are you ready, Kerry?
Not sure, but give it a try.
I just goof around and have fun with it. Really, it's just another set of questions, but they're questions that are common that I ask most every guest. I like to, because they're overarching, that I think are very tangible and interesting to compare to different industries, people doing different things. So I'm going to start out with one I love and that I do ask everybody is, what is your biggest source of inspiration?
My biggest source of inspiration are the artists around me in my makeup room. They're my biggest source. They absolutely are. The people next to me that I create art with, they're my biggest source.
It makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys feed off each other. And mm-hmm. like we were talking earlier, you don't have a film without your team.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm sure the people who have been on your teams will love hearing that.
Oh.
If they happen to listen to this, I hope you're listening.
They will.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite book?
Oh, I feel like I have favorite books.
I know it's a hard one.
This is the nerd in me. So I was just talking to somebody the other day about my love of history, and I'm just seriously very nerdy. But there's a book called Claudius, And it's about the Roman Empire and all the different emperors that reigned, but it's from the perspective of the Emperor Claudius. But the book really goes into just the whole life and structure of ancient Roman society. And that's just my nerdness. Claudius. It's very interesting. Well done.
Noted. Oh, man. Roman history is fascinating. And I know that when I get a little more time, that's going to be one of the deep dives I go into because it's so pivotal in human history, and so much is just, there's so much there.
Yeah. Well, and it's told in a story. It's certainly a story format. So it's like you're reading this book, but it almost is like, am I reading fiction? No, it's both. It's like non-fictional fiction, or it's interesting. Anyway.
That makes it digestible or like more engaging too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Do you have a favorite musical artist or a particular album? I'm not going to ask. I don't ask people, what's your favorite song? That's ridiculous. But what about a artist or album?
Oh my gosh, Josh. This is so tough. Every time I think I have a favorite, it's something else. Oh my gosh. I mean, I love genres, different genres. That's it.
We can start there. What's your favorite genre then? Maybe that'll whittle it down to the artist. And I know, like, for me, it's like, oh, it's the mood that I'm in. Really depends.
Well, it does. Well, I mean, I love Frank Sinatra, but then, I love classic rock. I don't know. I like music. That's a tough one. Can we just cough it up to that's a tough one?
Yeah. You'll lose a couple points, but no worries on that. Because the points don't matter. Honestly, these aren't made to be necessarily easy. And also these also aren't things that you think of like every day. You're not like, okay, today, who's my favorite, just checking in. Who's my favorite artist? What's my favorite book? Where do I get my inspiration from? They're not made to be like normal things you think about. So
how do you pick? There's so many.
I know. I honestly, if someone asked me that question back, there would be a big moment of silence. I wouldn't know how to answer it myself, but luckily I'm on this side of the microphone. So
yeah, but tomorrow I'll be driving around going, oh, it's probably that.
All right. Maybe this one will be harder. I don't know. What's your favorite film?
Really?
Of course it's Black Adam or something you've worked on, right?
I wish it was ranked that high. I love Tombstone.
All right.
I love me a good Western.
Awesome. Cool.
I do.
I like, I don't know if you've ever seen the TV series Firefly. It's like a sci-fi Western. Sci-fi meets Western, and it was done by Fox. They have one season, and then it got canceled, and everybody was super mad because it's so good. And like the soundtrack is Western, and it's got like Western vibes when they go to the worlds, but it's sci-fi and it's taking place in the future. You might dig that.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Okay. Yeah. And shout out to all the Firefly fans out there. You know what I mean. Okay. We're almost done with the rapid fire. You're doing great. Okay. One more. How do you define success?
Ooh, I don't think I want to define success for myself because it's like I don't want to give myself a glass ceiling, but I think success means to me, how I would define it is setting out on a path that sustains you, that you're passionate about, is successful to me. To be able to put a roof over your head and food on the table consistently and still find passion for what you're doing to achieve that.
I love that. I feel like out of many of the answers, that's definitely one I resonate with a lot. Is the word sustainable, because you could have quick success, but how successful is it if it's a one hit, or a fluke, or an accident, but sustaining that thing, like for instance, bands or TV series, it's like, how do you keep putting out great albums one after the other, or great seasons one after the other? That's the tricky part. Like if Firefly had a season 2 and 3 and 4, would it be as good as the first one? I mean, I'd love to find out. Come on, Fox. What are you doing?
Maybe Fox didn't think they could. They're like, how? Well, we gave it our all on season 1. We got nothing left for 2.
They just used all their energy. Now they're
all their energy.
So tired.
Yeah. Something like that. Well, it's like with me, it's like I pull off a very, very difficult job. I'm expected to always be able to pull off a difficult job. You can't not. There's no going back. That's it. Can't.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. You won rapid fire. Yes. Great job, Kerry. Thanks for sticking with me on that. But I thought it was really insightful. That's really good. I just want to conclude with a couple of things. So I want to kind of know, what are your future goals? What does Kerry Herta look like in 10 years, 5 years? Where's your career going? What are you working on?
Well, in 5 to 10 years, I definitely will be educating a lot more. That's really important to me, to carve out a schedule that allows me to do that more, so I can do that around the country and continue to mentor artists and grow careers. And I also have Bespoke Pro Designs that we are actively growing, so we could bring high-end exclusive custom products to the pro community. And that is like within the 10-year goal of, really making sure that that's spread worldwide. And I feel that within the next 10 years, I will be picking and choosing my projects more than just by necessity. It'll be more by choice.
Sounds great. It's also really cool to hear that, you're focusing on educating to make sure that this awesome art continues at a high caliber, but also it's clearly scratching a particular itch that you enjoy diving in with people, learning and working together on that. I feel you on that. I miss education, and once I chisel out a little more time, I'll become an adjunct instructor and like pick up a class here and there, like maybe once a semester or something like that. But I look forward to seeing where it goes. Also, I look forward to building your website more and, continuing to work with you, because it's such a pleasure to see it all come together. I'm like, oh man, this is really, really cool. I mean, you guys could go and check it out. Anybody listening, BespokeProDesigns.com. You can see her work. It's amazing.
Oh, thanks, Josh. But like I said, I didn't do it all by myself. It took a village.
Totally.
But yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. Well, and you have me as a client as life. I'm a lifer. I'm a name and lifer.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, I like that. Has a nice ring to it, but that means a lot. I really appreciate that. I love working with you, so it works out.
Good. Ditto. Yeah, but there's gonna be many more websites we're gonna do together. I have no doubt.
Yeah, me too. Well, cool. So I like to kind of dive in at the very end here. Maybe it's one of your students, former, future students, or someone in the industry listening, someone not in the industry listening. What's your biggest piece of advice for someone listening that it's just like, I wish I would have heard this when I was, up and coming, or even now?
Well, I mean, I think everybody always says things like, don't give up. And it's true. Don't give up. But, back to even talking about value, I feel that if you are passionate for something and you want that bad enough, just keep going. You're going to find your way there. Maybe try a different avenue, explore a different option. But I always say there's enough work in every niche out there for someone to be able to join the party. So just keep going until you're invited to the party. There's always going to be one.
Wow. That's awesome. I love the way that you put that, as it being a party. Because, I mean, if you're not having fun, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all know as adults, we have to get out there and work. And not every day is going to be fun. Days are going to be stressful. Like every job has its perks, it has its negatives, it has all the things. And work it's what it is. It's work. So if you find something that you want to do, just keep going. There's enough out there for everyone. There always will be.
I think that's great advice. And I mean, speaking of work and jobs, this is part of my job, which is crazy. I mean, I set it up this way, but to be here, to get to talk to awesome people like you and dive into your story. I mean, I love how I got to know you so much better now. This is so cool. And it's just a pleasure knowing you, but it's also hard to believe that this is work right now. And so it's just been an honor and a real big pleasure working with you, getting to know you better. And I hope people are inspired by this episode.
Oh, thank you, Josh. Likewise. And I hope so too. If I can inspire one person, that just makes my day.
Okay. Well, you did. So consider your day made. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you, Josh.